If you think ColecoVision plays all Atari cartridges,
You mean it can't?
here's Pac-Man on ColecoVision. But here's Pac-Man for the Atari 5200 Super System.
Now you're talking.
And it doesn't work on ColecoVision.
But won't their adapter?
It won't play Super System cartridges.
Not pole position?
Not this pole position.
Not centipede?
Not this centipede. Only on the Atari 5200 Super System.
Hey, show him Pac-Man.
Here.
Where? In there.
Now Pac-Man comes with it.
Hey.
Welcome back to another episode in this ongoing saga with the 5200. Now, we tested everything, made sure the games are working, made sure the controller's working, you know, the trackball and at least a couple of joysticks. And we made sure, most importantly, that the system was working with no problems. So, as I mentioned before, I am sending this off to Ivory Tower Collections, and you could find him on YouTube. Pretty much if you search any 5200 repair video, chances are at least a playlist or a video or two of his will show up. And Ivory Tower is pretty much like the expert, the source on 5200. And he does take commissions, which I didn't know until recently, because I reached out to Retro Game Boys and said, hey, you know, do you know anyone that's good with a 5200? I thought, okay, Ivory Tower I knew about because I pretty much learned everything I needed to learn about the 5200 from him in his videos. But however, I thought he was just doing it, you know, once in a while or occasionally. I didn't realize he actually has a business doing this stuff. So contacted him, and you know, he's paid and off this is going to go to him. But another problem. These 5200s are notoriously brittle, so you got to take really good care of them. And they're also big and bulky. So a combination of the two, when it's getting ready to ship it, doesn't matter whether you're selling it or whether you're sending it in for mods or even repair, it's kind of a problem. And Ivory Tower pretty much suggests that, especially for him, if you're going to send him consoles, you know, 5200 consoles, that you take the top off and put the screws aside. And it'd be a good opportunity to show you how that's done. And he does send you this as a private video, but I'm also going to do it here because I want to actually, you know, show you the insides of the 5200. And this is obviously the 2-port model. And I'm basically going to be cleaning the top while the bottom is away. And by the way, you want to be careful of this because this translucent plastic's not only easily breakable, as you've seen by the chip. And by the way, I found the chip that matched it in the box. So I have some super glue, so I'm going to put that back together. And just be careful with this because this can break easily because it's translucent plastic. It's over 40 years old. Lots can happen with it. So just when you're taking this apart, be careful. I cannot stress that enough. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's also translucent plastic on the bottom here. It may not look it, but it is. You could tell by the frosting around the LED light. Don't mind me, my asthma's getting a little messed up. So we're gonna, and he recommends putting it on like a piece of bubble wrap or something, but we have a towel right here, so it should be protected. I always try to work with a towel, especially now that we don't have a tablecloth anymore on this kitchen table, because it got to be too much of a pain in the ass. All right, so anyway, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna be installing the Sophia mod. And how that's going to work is, you see where this expansion port is? I don't know if you can see it or not. And by the way, I got to keep holding the drawer down. He's going to be drilling some holes here. 3 of them, well, technically 4. 3 component plugs, one for RGB, red, green, and blue. And a smaller hole, which is going to be for a 3.5 millimeter jack, which we call a headphone jack. And that's going to be used to carry the audio, so I can hook this up to the RetroTing 4K. And he recommends that if you're going to get the Sophia done, with the component plugs like we're going to do, that you have a scaler, whether it's an OSSC, whether it's a retro tank of some kind. We're using this on the 4K, so we're good. And because you can't drill holes here like you could before, because you got the plug here, you got the channel select there, so it's not going to work. And we've got our yellowed serial sticker that looks like it wants to come off. Now, he says that he does handle the cleaning of the bottom. So all we got to do is really clean the top. So now we're going to take this apart. And, of course, there's nothing here. Just want to make sure. So there's supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken, 7 screws. So there's 2 short ones here. And this is where the ice cube tray comes in handy. And you can, pretty much every house has one of these. You could probably have some in your freezer. I know some of you have automatic ice makers, but these are cheap. You can go to the dollar store and pick these up. If you always entertain guests or you have an older house, chances are you've got this. So definitely want to keep this handy because the screws are different sizes and we want to keep these set aside for when the bottom comes back. So first we're going to take care of these 2 screws, and you just need a Phillips head and some painter's tape, and I'll show you why in a little bit. So, and chances are you're going to need a big Phillips head like I've got here. And the reason why I want to do those 2 first is because unlike the other 5, it's tiny. These are the tiny screws. And the reason why they're tiny is because they're just at the top to hold the door in. And you'll see what I mean when I open that up. So you want to put these 2 aside for sure and keep it away from the rest of the screws, because you don't want to screw that up. Yeah, I know, stupid. But truth, you don't want to mix the screws up. So that's what I'm going to do. Basically, I'm going to do these 2, then these 2. That's going to be separate, and then these 3. So this way I know 2, 2, 3. I know some people just put the other 5 together, but I'd rather not. Try to make it as organized as possible. And it doesn't look like that's going to come out with just my fingers. And I don't have my tweezers handy. I wonder if I use a butter knife. I wonder if that'll fix that. You know, prop it up enough that I can grab my finger. And yep, it does. So we're going to put those separately. Because remember, oh shit, there we go. It's an Atari, so it's got those factory screws. And of course there's 3 screws on the bottom. And they should be the same size. But like I said, I'd rather keep them organized. So this way I know which is what. Now let's see if they really are the same size. And they are. I don't know if you can see that. It is the same size. But again, you always want to double check because you never know. And if you put a too long screw in a too short hole, then the screw could pierce the plastic when you're tightening it up. If you have it not tight enough, clearly it's not going to stay closed. And we're not going to worry about the RF plug because we're actually going to keep it because of the Sophia. You don't need to touch the RF lines. And remember, if you try to touch the RF lines, then that means you can't use the VCS adapter. And I'm sure not going to use it all the time, but I'd like to be able to at least display it, you know, for someone that's never seen it or don't know how it works. So anyway, here are our screws, and these are the 2 baby screws on the top, the 2 middle screws, and the 3 screws on the bottom. 2, 2, 3. Just remember that, you'll be fine. Because that's what we do here. We try to, you know, I'm not going to say dumb it down, but make it simple. Now, when you're picking the 5200 back up to take the top part off, put your hand under it. So this way, because now it's going to be loose, so this way the controller drawer doesn't come out. And by the way, if you accidentally press it, just, you know, unpress it. So we're going to take it apart like this, and just be careful when you're taking it apart, because as you can see for the controller drawer, there's literally latches that it connects to when you close it up. So now that it's not connected to anything, she's coming off. So you don't want to mess with that. It's a little tighter on the 2-port, but still do not take that chance. So we're going to put this aside for now, because right now we don't need it, because that's not being shipped out. That's staying home. Okay, so now let's take a look at our 5200 as we have it open. And it's not too bad. I'm going to probably wipe that down just a little bit so the painter's tape will stick. Be always a good idea to do that. And just dampen it. You don't want to make it wet, because then it'll obviously rust, because this is steel. But the idea is to at least clean the RF shielding enough, because he's going to clean the whole system when he works on it. But the idea is to clean this up, so this way, see, look at all that dirt. We're talking about 40 years worth of dirt that's stuck in some attic somewhere, because I didn't smell no water, I didn't smell no mold. So that smells like box. So that tells me that this has just been stored in an attic. And by the way, don't worry about getting all of this off. That's just how it ages. Right now, all we're concerned about is making the RF shield nice and clean, so our tape has something to stick on. Because we're going to be needing to use that tape since it has nothing to screw onto, because the top's not on there. It needs to be able to stay on the underside. And I know what you're thinking, well, Rachel, why doesn't he just ask you to send in just the motherboard? Well, that's a little bit of a stupid question, but I'll still answer it anyway. It's because he needs to drill holes. He needs to drill holes on this side for the component plugs, and he also needs to, you know, not super glue them like that other idiot, hopefully, but, you know, actually fasten them into place. So he's going to need the bottom shell in order to mount the plugs that we're going to need. So that's why. And we're going to go over it with our hand. It's a little bit of dirt up here, but that's fine. We're only worried about this part mainly, because now we're going to use the painter's tape. And you can tell it's never been touched because these RF pins have never been actually touched, because they just take pins. This is how they fasten it. They take these pins, it's flat, they put the shielding on, then they twist the tabs so you can't open them. And by the way, this is to show you how Atari was cost cutting back in 1983. Even though this is a 2-port unit, you still use a 4-port shell. So it literally has the cutouts for the 2 other missing controller ports. However, since it's a 2-port, it only uses this and this. And the top, come over here. All right, anyway, and the top has it as well on here. So they never changed the outer shell at all. What they did change was this translucent plastic, and this is what I'm talking about. This has translucent plastic, because now you can see it through it now that it's in the light. So that's all they did. They took a piece of translucent plastic and cut it in the shape of the 2 ports and just put it over there. That's how they covered it up. That's literally all they did. And I think you can use these tabs to take that out. I'm not sure. I don't want to try it, so I'll just leave that there. And that's another rule of thumb. Of course, it's getting stuck on the damn towel. If you don't know what something does, don't touch it. And that also goes for rule of thumb for literally anybody. Doesn't matter whether you're working on a system. It doesn't matter whether you're in share a house with someone. Anything, especially for seniors. If you don't know what it is, and by the way, for kids too, because kids are curious. If you don't know what something is, don't touch it. Got it? Okay. Now that we got that out of the way, by the way, I'm sort of a trained professional. I just don't solder. It's the only thing I don't do. We're going to take this painter's tape, and we're at the end of the roll, but that's fine. We only need enough to where we can take the RF shielding, stick it to the RF shielding, and then turn it around and be able to fasten it to the 5200. Now, the idea is you take this painter's tape is supposed to help keep the motherboard in place during shipping. And since he's going to clean up the bottom anyway, you can just make it as sticky as you want as far as flickering it down on the side there. Make sure it's nice and tight and then it's not going anywhere. And now we're going to do it with the other side. Now he says 10 inches, but I'd rather use a little more because, you never know. Especially since, like I said, the USPS or FedEx, they love to act like they're the American Tourist commercial and start throwing this damn thing across the friggin' stock rooms and on their trucks. And because they don't give a shit. All they give a shit about is getting your package there. They don't give a shit how they handle it. It's just, well, we got it there. That's what. Let the insurance take care of it. And here we go. And let's do a little bit of a test, a controlled one. So I'm not just gonna flick it over and go da, 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 da. No, we're just gonna flip it over, hold it by the RF shielding, not the shielding, the cable tie, and just shake it a little bit. It's not going anywhere. The board's not falling. So that's what we want. So now it is prepped and ready for you to add a whole shitload of bubble wrap to it and put it in whatever box you're going to use to send it to your modder or your installer. And in this case, we're sending it to Ivory Tower. So we wish it the best on its long journey to, I think it's Massachusetts or some shit. I know I got some coming in from Rhode Island, so that's why I got that out in New England on the mind. But we wish it well on its journey, and I guess hats off to you, man. You got this now. Take care of our baby, and obviously make the baby a grown-up and send her back to us in a much better condition. So hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and when you see us next, we will be rebuilding the 5200 controller. So until then, Rachel Schaefer signing off.
Incoming transmission.
Good evening, Rachel. I'm Jesse, and I welcome you to the Ivory Tower Collections game room.